So, welcome to GrowthOD. We appreciate you being here. I want to start out by thanking the people at Thinkment Circle, the think tank, because they helped me do the deep dive into the concepts that you won't hear about today. You're only going to hear about the practical stuff. So I'm going to ask the Think Circle not to get into any Greek or Russian or anything else, and not to divulge any word that starts with the word A and K. Today, we're going to focus on what's called the beneath, going into the beneath, and we're going to look at how all five pillars of Growth OD behind me are going into the beneath, going below the surface, putting on their diving mask, throwing away their Superman cape, and getting down into the nitty gritty of listening to other people's stories and doing what we call together listening and together telling. I'll go through the different pillars and we'll have two breakouts, and I'll show you some cool slides. There's also a lot of study material on the growthod.org website. The new newsletter 3 is out, which is on today's topic, going into the beneath. So with that, I'll run through a few slides and then we'll go to the first breakout. Is that okay with everybody? Everybody happy? So I want to thank you all, and we want to give you a sense of what's happening today. All right, let me see if I can find my share button and get her going. All right, so you should see a screen here that has a slide on it. Okay, and I can see you all in the background. Very good. All right, let me go to multi-speaker. All right. Okay, so this is the Growth OD framework I've produced for the next 7 weeks. We're going to do 7 sessions, one a week, and hopefully you'll find it fabulous. This is our schedule for today. My opening is done. We're going to talk about how the cape is choking you, Superman. Get into segment 1, the core shift from cape to wetsuit. We'll do a little bit about Purview and Glow, how that applies, then we'll do the breakout. Then we'll come back and do the practice of Purview and Glow, some quick hits, hints, and hits, and we'll do souls. That's for the Vujade and the axiology people and everybody else in Growth OD, and we'll focus on souls. We'll have that breakout. We'll design some moves, and then we'll come back to the final Q&A. All right, so here we go. What if you only see 1% of what's truly going on at work and 99% is below the surface of the iceberg? And what if you're trying to be Superman with your one story that you're broadcasting as if it's the story for your whole organization, your whole group, your whole team, whatever it is? And what if instead we put on the diving suit and we go down there and listen to all the stories of all the other people in the organization? That's what it's about today. So if you're into the hero's tale and you're making yourself sound great with the heroic tale, I want to say maybe you want to stop doing that, because it just makes 1% of what you're able to digest into the whole true story of your organization. And if you look beneath the surface, there's a whole lot of storytelling going on that we want to get to. Now, my specialty is the story filter and how filters filter out about 90 to 99% of reality. And that's what they're good for, because you can focus in. You can't handle all the stuff. Imagine all the emails you get in a day. Imagine all the advertisements you see in a day. If you could, you don't digest all that. You pick and choose based on your story filters. And CEOs do it, coaches do it, consultants do it. So, how do you recover the 99%? That's what our focus is today. Number one, the one truth megaphone. So, one of the things I learned in teaching true storytelling is the first principle about what's true a lot of new people come in and think, well, they have the truth and everybody else is full of it and they don't have the truth. Well, that's not really what the first principle of true storytelling is about. It's not about your hero's tale of you, the one truth, and you just box everybody else off with your megaphone and tell them what's true. So instead of standing on the mountaintop with your megaphone and a crown on your head and a cape around your shoulders, broadcasting one story, we're going to have you do number two. Look at the five dive tools. Trade your cape in for the wetsuit. Go beneath the surface. And the old way, the organization, the CEO, the coach, the consultant they hire, they have a megaphone, they broadcast one story. I saw this happen at the university. They paid close to $1 million for a consultant to come in from El Paso. And that El Paso taught us one story. We were to broadcast from several hundred faculty and 100+ administrators. Well, it don't work. They never bothered to ask us, put on the mask, shine a flashlight on what the rest of us at that university were thinking about. Now, all five pillars of Purview do this in their own way, or all five of GrowthOD. My specialty Purview stories are filtered, but we can hunt for little while moments. In Glow, their focus is on language traps and getting away from blaming and doing a reframing, a flip, as I understand it. In the socioeconomic approach to management, 50% of the costs that are reported in your regular reporting systems are hidden from you. So you cannot make the proper decisions because you don't have the right information. So the move there, the dive moves to calculate hidden costs. I'm just giving an overview. Don't worry if you don't get all of it. It's all on the website at growthod.org and the study guides, etc. Now, Souls deals with the gap, Vujade and axiogenics, and we can map different decisions and their value, or we can map them according to our are we internal, external, introvert, extrovert? Are we outcome, process oriented, etc. in Vujade? So we'll get to that later in the session. We won't do much with AAM today. The David Trofimo auxiliary assumption method can't do everything in one session, so we're going to have just two breakouts and focus a little bit on Purview and Glow, first breakout, a little bit on Seam and Souls in the second breakout. So breakout session one, our objective is for you to practice identifying what I call terse telling. This comes from the idea that in all my research, I never found people telling the whole story in an organization and conversations. They just speak in code. They just say, well, that happened in the Epson Wars. I'm going, what Epson Wars? As the consultant. And they go, oh, you know the story, David. And I would pretend that I knew, or I would be honest and say, I don't know, tell me. Well, you remember the time, weren't you told by the CEO that our sales force was going to walk away with all our clients? I said, no, I didn't know that. We had a war to go and find out how to get the information on the sales people's clients so they wouldn't walk away from the organization. So that's an example of what's called terse storytelling, because you just tell a little bit of something. You don't tell the whole story. A, you don't want other people to know, or B, you assume they already know. So in police and firemen work, they'll say, oh, there's a code 51, there's a code 32. They don't break it down for the public what that means. They understand the message with each other. So that's called terse telling. And we're going to look at how we can deal with that, reframing it, called the frame tool, in both, particularly in Glow, but also in Purview, where we have people unpack their story. We listen and we get the details of how they're feeling, what they're thinking, what's going on with whatever episode fragment. So the instruction is share a fragmented story. That's like a little short story No more than like 6, 8 words. I know it's bigger, but you're just going to share the code like you would tell your wife. Like my wife would tell to me, dishes. And I instantly know I should have done the dishes. I didn't do the dishes 3 days in a row, and there's no more excuse. And because it's said with one word, I better get off my duff and go do them now. That means all that, you know? So we want a little code phrase. That's it. Listen for people saying, and listen for what I call a little wow moment, like a little thing. Like I might speak back with Grace Ann gently and say, "Oh, I really wanted to get those clean like I did a week ago. I was wanted to do that. That's my little wow moment a week ago, you know?" And part two, pick that phrase, that little 3 or 4 sentence or 3 or 4 words that means sentences and paragraphs, and then reframe it. What new perspective opens up? So, for example, in my story of the salesman walking away from with their clients from the big office supply company, it turned out that the reframing is they wanted to do something when a new CEO was going to come in, and they'd have five in the last 3 years, five different CEOs, and it disrupted their relationships to their clients and vendors. And they wanted to have, good, stable relationships. So they're actually trying to protect an asset, stable relationships. It wasn't the megaphone story. These dirty salesmen are stealing our clients from our office supply company. You get how we reframe it. We ask for a reframing, and they do that in particular in the Glow tool. So it's just practice. You're not going to be asked to get it all right. You're just going to be asked to do the following. Share a comment you share with your husband or as a consultant, or you heard from an executive. I'll give you another example. Grace Ann and I consulted a missile range. It's a big, important client. And the CEO of the range said, who was Colonel, as I remember, this is a three-legged stool with 2 legs. And we're thinking like, what the hell is this man talking about? you know? And it turns out that there was the military side of the house. There was the civilians that worked there with the military, and then there was the contractors, like General Dynamics or TOW or something that had a big investment in the missile range. So you had 3 sides of the house. So one of those sides wasn't working very well. So the three-legged stool, the metaphor, meant a whole lot of stuff. As a consultant, Grace Ann and I had to unpack it. So I hope that gives you a sense of relevance. So let me say part three, pick one person. Don't spend a lot of time. Well, why don't we pick this one over the other two? Or why don't we pick that one? Or what if we didn't pick that one? No, just pick one. It's practice. It's not to be perfect. And then they report out. So let me break it down again. One, you got 4 minutes to share some quick one-liners. Two, after you pick one, right, try to reframe it. You can all get on a discussion of reframe it. Don't rely on the person that picked it. Treat them as the client, maybe help them unpack it a little bit with you. Number three, spend a couple minutes appointing a speaker that speaks out into the main session with one key insight. In the past, you tended to repeat everything that was in the session by every person. We don't have time for that. We got time for one insight. Pick one. The other people will understand. They'll still love you. Let's see. And then we're going to synthesize, in 1 minute each breakout for the main group. Let's take some questions. so that we're clear. Olivia, go ahead.
So it could be from a past experience with work. It doesn't have to be current.
It would have to, yeah, it would be past. It wouldn't be today. It would be past
Like
experience.
an old place I used to work. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So David, where you say 4 minutes, that's 4 minutes for the group. So if there were four people in the group, each would have about a minute, less than a minute.
Yeah, I'm going to try to make it 3 people or 2 people so you have time. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, so the whole process is 4 minutes, not per person.
correct. Does everybody have a good handle on what a terse phrase? Terse means it's short. It's like a one-liner, you know? Anybody have any other questions before we break out? Okay. All
Will
right.
you put the questions in the chat,
I
please?
will. Thank you. I will do that. It'll take me a moment, so get started sharing because I'll have to make sure everybody gets in a room, okay? Let me make the breakout rooms. And
David, I just shared a screenshot of your slides, so the questions are there.
oh, thank you so much. Okay, so let's see if I got the rooms stacked around good. Okay, I'm gonna exchange. Okay.
While David's doing that, I want to say a quick hello to everybody that we didn't say hello to individually. I see you out there. You're on my screen. Hope to talk with you in the breakout or afterwards.
It's wonderful to see you, Grace Ann.
You too, Carol. Hi, Paul. Everybody.
Yeah, we all love having you back, I think.
Something else to
Okay,
celebrate? Oh, David, you ready?
yeah, just about. Um, so there'll be 6 rooms. Ken Long will be the facilitator in room 1. Eddie and Doug can flip for it in room 2. Room 3, Olivia will be the facilitator. Room 4, Joy. Room 5, Gracie Ann. Room 6, Tom Lemke. Okay, so
Who's left?
that's it. There's me. I will try to go where I have an energetic sense that I'm needed. Okay, all right. Okay. And I will broadcast how much time you got left here and again. Okay, thank you so much. I'm so excited to see what you're going to do. Bye now. Press the button. Joy and Ken, can you find your button? Okay, you did. All right, very good.
My little fragment is we're wasting too much time talking in meetings.
Well, welcome back. It's really good to see you all made it back. I'm really happy. We are going to now see if you were able to trade in Superman's cape for some diving goggles and a breathing apparatus to go down and listen to all the stories in your organization, your relationships, your arts organization, whatever you have. Okay. So we're going to now hear from the breakout groups. Let's start with breakout number one. And who's going to report out, either Ken or Paul?
Yeah, I'll report.
Oh, I didn't have.
Oh, go ahead, Paul. Go, Paul.
Oh, what I was going to say was the code word was trash. My wife says trash or reminds me to take it out. I resent it when she tells me to do that, and it takes me down underwater. And what Ken pointed out is, oh, you need to be very grateful for your wife being good to you and gracious in reminding you without rancor. Oh, it's like 9 o'clock. Maybe you should do that. It's a nice reminder, which I tend, given the stuckness of my past, to see as, oh, there you go. You're criticizing me for my flaws. I forget stuff. I don't do stuff all the time. I'm lazy and I postpone, yada, yada, yada. So I'm a really miserable guy. Anyhow, I think that's a minute.
Thank you for those happy thoughts, Paul. Let's go to room two, either Doug or Eddie.
So I was just the two of us. So the terse comment is you'll see. I work in a botanical gardens and customer service, and they measure how long you've been at the company by how many Christmases that you've spent there. And this is my first Christmas. So they said, you'll see, meaning, oh, you're going to see how busy we are. And the wow moment for me was, okay, I really cherish the relationships that I've been building with this new group of people that I'm working with. And the commitment and the camaraderie is something that I'm looking forward to. That was the wow moment on how I reframed it. And coming from a lens that is very attuned to organizational dynamics, you walk in and you're like, oh, your radar goes up. And I kind of just put that on the back burner and realized that the relationships are paramount. And I want to see if Doug would like to share his story if we have time.
Well, that breaks the
But
rule. Just one
yeah,
person
okay.
per.
And I don't want to break that, so
Yeah.
we'll just go ahead. It just
Thank you for not
reaffirms
breaking
your
my
point.
rules. Now, room three, either Carol, Jack, or Olivia, please.
Yeah, so we looked at credit card industry, how there was this bias that the story that people that are high risk, you can't make money on them. And then people started figuring out a way to do that. So that was sort of a little wow moment. So the habitual phrase was, they're not profitable, but it could be turned over by charging more interest, which we all hate, I know, but it was a full example. And then this whole new perspective, this whole new industry really opened up, which was how to make money with people who are higher risk.
Thank you, Olivia. Appreciate all the shares. Room four, either Jim or Joy.
Well, Jim and I have had very different experiences. And so Jim is concerned about his lack of ways to promote his business. But he did say that he finally worked for a place where the boss liked everything he did because he's been self-employed and the only employee for 30 years. So we had very different experiences. I worked in a project management environment where my job was to meet deadlines and impose deadlines. And that was my whole job. That's just what you do. You impose deadlines. But the interesting piece about that is the message that we got from the director level and above was we need well-rounded employees that know about their children's baseball game, and they always go to the dance recital, and they know whether their children are in dance or a sport. However, those deadlines are not movable. And so I gave the example of, yeah, I would like my team to have work-life balance, but my job is to impose deadlines. So that's what we talked about.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. We're going to go to room 5, either Anastasia or Gracie Ann.
I'll speak for our group, and I'm going to talk about Grace Ann's example, which was I found really brilliant and easier to talk about. So her terse statement was they're putting mom in a nursing home, and all of the implications that could mean negatively, how we've kind of thought about that as, you know, a time of like sort of abandonment of our parents. And reframing that into no, actually, it's not a no, but it's a yes and moment. It's like, yes, we are still there providing everything that we are currently, and we are also getting additional resources and help as needs change. And so we are able to do that, and reframing it that way in a wow moment of like, you know, that's really great that you can you know, have a third party helping out and filling in the gaps where, you know, one person would not be able to do that alone. So it was a great example of how reframing can really change your perspective, and you want that because your one story that you continue telling yourself just doesn't tell, you know, again, it's just the 1%. It's not the whole picture. And especially when it's something, a phrase like that, where it's more negatively framed, typically you want to be more gracious about how you think about things. So doing the reframe was a really wonderful wow moment for us.
Thank you very much. Yeah. You've all got the point of the exercise. We're going to go to room 6, and either Monty, Nazanin, or Tom.
Well, I talk about from group 6, and we refer to my first kind of boss, the chancellor of our college. He was a person who exercised power to manage faculties and lack human touch in his managerial exercise. People say he's an engineer, and in the surface, it means that he uses data to manage. But in latent meaning, it means that he doesn't have human touch. He doesn't have human interaction with other people, because he exercised power in bad manner. He has power imbalance, and he exercised in group favoritism greatly, and he had harsh behavior with the people he didn't like or had bias against them. So, like, first, talking about he's an engineer, especially from social science faculty, doesn't make sense. But after a while, I learned why they say this. It means that he's harsh and kind of dictator.
Thank you, Nazanin. Okay, so now we're going to look at the next 2 aspects, do another breakout, but I want to compliment you all on really getting the point. You know, to take off Superman's cape, stop trying to be the hero, broadcasting the one story that everybody salutes to and signs on to, and try this other approach that I think all 5 of the GrowthOD pillars do, which is to go beneath, right? See how we can listen to all the other voices. We call it together listening and true storytelling and together telling. And won't that be magical? Won't that be magical? Right? So with that, I'd like to go just do the other slides, prep for the breakout. We'll have plenty of time to do a lot of Q&A at the end. We're on schedule. And thank you very, very much. Let's see. Let me try that again with a little bit different instruction. Okay. Thank you for holding. I don't see anything happening. Let me try it again. Okay. All right, there we go. That was our breakout. Thank you for waiting. So we're going to take a deeper look at how some of these tools work. Again, the main point, we're giving up Superman's cape. We're getting on the diving suit. We're going down into the beneath. We're getting beneath all the stuff, all the 99%. And in some of the art pillars, it's 50%, whatever that percent is. We're getting down into the deep where all the good stuff is. So you picture an iceberg on the right, and we're a whole team of GrowthOD consultants, coaches, executives are going in there looking at what's happening with that iceberg, and they're all beneath the surface of the water. On the left, you just got Superman. He's got the whole story. He's got it. Don't need to listen to anybody else. He's got the answer. Just salute and move on. So what this is all about in GrowthOD, right? The growth part versus the widespread fear. I've worked in a lot of organizations, universities, corporations, you name it, and fear was the king. Very rarely were we actually collaborating in a way toward mutual growth. In my example, in my consulting, that I turned into a nice article and a consulting practice, I was working with a fellow named Doug, not the Doug in the audience, right? And we had a meeting with all the VPs, and they said around all those salesmen, just a bunch of prima donnas, you know? We give them everything, and every time there's a little demand for our involvement of IT, you know, to get client data, they protest. They act like little prima donnas. But if you look at the big story, the big picture beneath, right? There was a quote I remember. I think the instability of the company, they have been battled several times. That's a little terse statement. I unpacked it with lots and lots of listening to lots and lots of people in that organization in several states of the United States, matter of fact. And they had several icebergs, several meltdowns. And they had about 6 CEO changes in 3 years. Now he had a new CEO. Iceberg 2. The word got out that this office supply company was going to be merged with 2 other office supply companies by a British conglomerate and sold. That just sent shockwaves throughout everywhere. You know, the vendors were nervous, the clients were nervous. Number 3, the executives I'm coaching thought that nobody else knew but them what the hell was going on. Can you believe it? They think the story never gets out. Are you crazy? You know, everybody knew what was going on. Everybody's got it tuned into, I don't know if they're listening to keyholes. They pounded a bug in the boardroom. They knew, you know. So when I took them for one of the things that Jack Brody has suggested in the past, a focus group in Santa Monica, California, all the trimmings, a little wine, nice tasty cheese, some hors d'oeuvres. Man, those, I did one for vendors and one for customers, and they all knew. They all knew, So it was a reframing. Those salesmen, a reframing look at it, like from Glow, is hey, they were protecting a part of the system that actually worked. They were resilient, surviving 6 CEO changes. Can you imagine? And holding your customers and vendors together. Wow, moment. So 4, the goal of the dive, explore the 99% below the bottom, put on a flashlight, a mask. A flashlight, right? You kind of look and you see and you observe and you notice things. That's what I do as a consultant. That's what I learned to do when I'm at my best. That flashlight will show you pure gold in the stories hidden, the stories not told. I sat in through a lot of meetings. I heard a lot of bullshit, and then I observed what was going on. So one of the pillars that does this spectacularly is the socioeconomic approach to management. They believe that 50% of the cost of their organization are hidden beneath the surface and aren't being reported to upper management that are up there with their capes on their little rowboats or whatever those are. And they don't know how to make a good decision. They ain't got the data. So 5, our story, our symphony, right, is to move from the solo leader with the cape or the solo consultant that's got the answers to listening to the symphony. If you're a leader, or be an orchestra leader of the symphony, don't play the horn burp, 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 as the only instrument. So even if you play the violin and it sounds really good, so what? You're not a symphony. So the salespeople were actually protecting something valuable. We'll learn this in Glow, in the GrowthOD book, that it's a reframing, that what we thought they were prima donnas, they weren't. So the question is, what part of the 99% will you uncover first? In other words, whether you call it 50% seam or 99% below and Purview and Glow, whether you're looking at auxiliary assumptions in AAM, whether you're exploring helping the story along in true storytelling, what part of 99% will you uncover first? So this is set us up for breakout number 2. I'll read the instructions and I'll be sending them like I did in breakout 1 through the chat thing. For participants to synthesize their learning by choosing one pillar and designing a practical first dive move for a real world problem. And if you could, since we got members of both the Vujade and the axiology crew here today, maybe work with that if you get a chance. If you're in a room and you don't know anything about it, pick a different tool, pick a different pillar. But I think it would be nice. So in part 1, you break out instructions. Each person shares 1 minute a problem and quickly selects one problem from their work. Focus what's being filtered out in this problem. Like what's the 99% or 50% that's filtered out. Part 2, choose one of the 5 pillars. Again, I've had a preference for souls with the Vujade or the axiology, but you can choose any pillar you want. I'll be okay with it. Design your first dive move. Like, what are you going to do? What's your move to get at the 99%? Part 3, appoint a spokesperson. And that spokesperson, just like breakout 1, will synthesize 1 minute for what's the problem, what's the pillar, what's the first move, what was the challenge. I got a little template. I'll send that in the breakout when it's time. So just to repeat, you're each going to share problem. 2, together you're going to choose one pillar. 3, you're going to appoint a spokesperson. When you're choosing the pillar, you can talk about it. So that's why you got 5 minutes for that. pointing a person, figuring out what they're going to say. That's 2 minutes. And then the person that reports out, what's the problem? What's the pillar? What's the move you made? What was the challenge you were trying to address? Okay, so let me stop sharing this and view you all. So does anybody have any questions before we go to great breakout number 2? Anything that would make it clearer, more helpful? You okay? You want to go back to the same rooms with the same people, or you had enough of them, want different people? Same people, different people, same people, okay? Liked your facilitator? All right. That, I mean, in the breakout. Obviously, you like me, you wouldn't be here. All right. Okay, so let's go into the breakout. Again, it's a 10-minute window for doing the tasks. And with that, we're good to go. Open all the rooms, press the button. I'll join one of the rooms where I think I can be helpful.
Next, do we do?
You are next.
Well, we decided to work with my organization, and all the members are in here. So there's this one of my personalities that was resisting making videos. So I've got courses all created. I just have to make the videos. And I wasn't clear about what was the reason for that. Jack pointed out that it was manifesting in procrastination. So I put my wetsuit on and my flashlight, and I went down below, and I saw that I was valuing being at peace too much, which I learned from axiology. And so I was thinking, oh, I have to get all my work done before I can relax, because I needed to regain my energy. Because I'm just looking at the instructions real quick, but I need to have a certain level of energy to do a video. As you know, we have to be kind of excited, right? And because I was valuing being at peace too much, I was losing, trying to get everything done, which was exhausting me. So by diving under, I can balance that, and by recognizing I can balance that and take from Glow some more loving of myself and nurturing, so that I'll have the energy to make videos very soon.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate the report out. And we're going to go to the next room. Let me pause. Ed, please.
All right, so let's see. Jim and I talked about being business owners and being small business owners. And I know that when you're an artist, the first thing you think of in the morning is, oh, I'm a business owner. And I know that from working with a lot of authors. And I tell them, oh, you were a writer, and now you're a published author, and now you're a business owner. And they go, business owner? But they're the salesperson, they're the customer service person, they're the scheduler. They are a business person, even if they're an author of a book or an artist getting ready to show, which Jim is. He has a show he's preparing for, but we talked a lot about the business models, and we both identified with the pillar of storytelling, the Perview model, or the pillar, which caused us to talk a little bit about his images and whether they tell a story. So of course they tell a story to him, but he's going to a gallery, and I challenge that every person going past there is possibly seeing a different story, and his work evokes stories out of people. And then he said that it is a common practice today for people to name their images. And he has a background image. It could be everything from a walk in the forest to beautiful colors
fall colors, or that would look good over my couch. So, you know, everybody has their own story about artwork. And he said sometimes, and I agree that sometimes naming your artwork could limit somebody else's thoughts about the story that comes out of that. But also, you can't have too many Untitled 1, Untitled 2, Untitled 3 if you're in a show at a gallery. So we both identified with the pillar of storytelling in our coaching and artwork.
Thank you, Joy.
What we talked about was how to go from the individual story to the group story. And that Anastasia's example is some people wanted to replace the leader, a pastor of a religious group. And my story was about the cheating, and people thinking it was just an individual situation, didn't affect the group. And so we talked about opening the microphone so that other stories can come in, structured in a way that focuses on the positive. Why did people first come to this group? What were their values, their aspirations? What attracted them? They use a similar model in marriage counseling. But in the organization, David and I did the generational thing. We had people physically in a group, and we had them by generations, and what brought them in, and how other people were connected through the earlier people who brought in who and what and how the organization grew. So that physical embodiment and the emphasis on the relationship and the stories of the values created cohesion and positive direction in the group. And so you really have to get away from the one story that says it has to be my way or it's not going to work kind of thing, and to avoid those kind of politicking stuff. And in my situation, I had all the students, I told them my story about integrity, and I had them record theirs, and then I printed out summaries of all of them for everybody to see that the rest of the class did not condone cheating. They said, I was up all night and I resent that somebody cheated on their exam. So to get those voices out and public in a positive way, to get everybody going in a positive direction and appreciating their common values and goals.
Record we're talking about Nazanin's situation, and Nazanin all of a sudden disappeared. So I'm not sure what happened. So if she wants to hear what we came up with, that would be great. Just real quickly, Tom brought in Glow and really talked about the chancellor and people's gratitude for what he brought to the party, as opposed to all of the negatives that they were perceiving, and how sort of this perception that he was creating was being fostered deeper in his organization. I brought in the Vujade component from the standpoint that she mentioned he was an engineer. And immediately what I came to mind was he much more process oriented versus outcome oriented, for instance? And she also talked about there was an in-group and an out-group. What was the in-group like him from a Vujade perspective versus the out-group being very diverse from his perspective? So it was getting down into the nitty-gritty, down under the water level in terms of what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the characteristics, and how do we have gratitude for the great things that he does.
Thank you, Monty, very, very much.
Keep the recording going, David, for both Eddie and me.
Yeah, if the both of you could come in and go on screen, I would appreciate it.
I believe I'm on screen. So I'll start off. Eddie and I, we used the souls pillar. And Eddie, with his background in axiology and mine with Vujade, what we found was a nice little dance or a dynamic where both can support and work together incredibly well. And in doing that, we took up the problem that I had in the first breakout which we haven't talked about, but I'll give a brief intro on it and hand over to Eddie to talk about axiology, and I'll wrap up with Vougeday, how it mixes in. So in this case, a little over a year ago, Monty will remember this well, the exec team was all together and we were talking about our meetings not being very effective or efficient. And they were going longer as we kept adding more people. And we fortunately, just before we said, well, we should just cut it down to, we were talking about maybe we should do every 2 weeks rather than a weekly meeting. And fortunately, we had the wow moment of said, let's just ask the team what they think about it. And the team fortunately pushed back very hard. And we at least have a culture that allows them to speak. And they kind of slapped us in the face and said, no, 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 don't you dare stop these meetings, because it's the only time all of us can get together. And it hit us so hard in the face that we realized we talk about relationships and we would just become entirely task oriented. And that these meetings are much more than tasks. It is about the connection. And we want to make sure, and our meetings have changed phenomenally from them. So I asked Eddie, and I'm going to hand over to him, how does that process fit within axiology? And so to help us understand the deep dive. So I'll hand over to Eddie and let him talk about that.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. And I'll keep it brief. So axiology, to oversimplify this, is that Robert S. Hartman states that in nature, there is an embedded hierarchy of value. And he comes up with this formula that the intrinsic human beings are greater than the extrinsic value in the world and what he calls the systemic value in the world. So I is greater than E is greater than S. And how does that show up in reality, in particular in reference to Doug's scenario? And my dissertation work is aligning this in organizations. How does this theory show up in organizations? And the easiest way I can explain it is this idea of being, doing, and thinking, where being is the intrinsic, the extrinsic is your doing, and the thinking is your systemic value that you create. And in that scenario, Doug opened up to the organization, testing their assumptions that these meetings are a waste of time, and he gave an opportunity for everyone to have a voice. So they were able to share their thinking. And what the challenge is to create a space that they felt safe, they were seen, and they were heard. And in reverse, so you take the hierarchy of value, you start with the systemic and create a safe place for them to be able to share their thoughts about the meeting. They said, oh, no, no, no. It's the only time we can get together to build our connections and have a relationship with each other. It wasn't a waste of time. It was the most valuable time that they were able to capture their togetherness. And at the same time, the doing was still being taken care of from a task perspective and a role perspective naturally, and not in violation of who they are as a human being, okay, what they did, and the ideas that they brought together to improve the entire axiological continuum, which is being, doing, and thinking, or intrinsic, extrinsic, and systemic value. And I apologize if I'm using language that you're not familiar with. It is really about this, what I'm talking about in my dissertation is feeling safe, feeling seen, and feeling heard. Okay. It's that simple.
Thank you. Thank you.
David, can I get 30 seconds just to weave Vougeday into that, or no?
Absolutely. And then let me close it out after that. Okay, go ahead.
So when Eddie was talking about that, the thing I realized is we were very fortunate. We already had a culture where we wanted our team members to be heard, but we talked about the problem he might face, in that briefly, and many organizations face, which is that there isn't a level playing field for people being heard, and that's where Vougeday comes in and mixes well with axiology. It creates that level playing field, because most organizations there is hierarchy, but when you get to Vougeday, we all speak. We all are introverts or extroverts, process and outcome. And what Vougeday does is the catalyst for you to start looking at people differently and realizing the value in the way they see the world is different than yours. And there is value in that. So it is that kind of catalyst which allows that polyphony to actually start happening and to allow people to be heard, that first step. And when you start valuing it, you see that that both that extrinsic and intrinsic pieces becomes even much more powerful with Vuj today. So it was a nice, interesting dance between the two tools.
It's
Thanks,
been
David.
a very good dance today. Let me close out and then we'll do our checkout. Thank you for coming to growthod.org. Today's session has been about a process called going beneath to where the real stories are, and take off your cape and dive deep. If you want to learn more about that, go to growthod.org. You'll find the new newsletter that's on this topic. For LinkedIn, you can subscribe there. You also find the 7 free tools you can avail yourself of, and you can come to our Monday session. Our Tuesday session is on Think Tank, and that's where we came up with the deep concepts that are behind this message that we tried to give in a practical way here at GrowthOD on our Monday sessions. So if you'd like to join us, go to growthod.org. I'm David Boji. Thank you.